My sister moved in after her divorce, and I wanted to help her heal. I didn't realize she was healing by borrowing pieces of my life, starting with my husband's attention. There's a particular kind of cold that has nothing to do with temperature. It starts in your chest, spreads through your ribs, and settles in your fingertips until you feel hollow and brittle, like a glass ornament waiting to fall. I felt it the first time I watched my sister touch my husband's arm during dinner. It was barely a graze, a fleeting thing, the kind of casual contact that happens between family. But there was something in the way she let her fingers linger, just a second longer than necessary. Something in the way my husband didn't pull away. I told myself I was imagining things. After everything she'd been through, the messy divorce, the shattered dreams, she deserved kindness, patience, a soft place to land. I just never expected her soft place to land on my husband. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, the kind of hour that never brings good news. I was already in bed, wrapped in my favorite quilt, scrolling mindlessly through my phone while my husband slept beside me. His breathing deep and even. The sudden buzz of my phone against the nightstand made me jump. And when I saw my sister's name on the screen, my stomach tightened with instinctive worry. "Please tell me everything is okay," I whispered as soon as I answered, already sliding out of bed to keep from waking my husband. Her voice on the other end was raw, ragged, like she'd been crying for hours. She told me she'd found the credit card statements. She told me she'd confronted him that evening. She told me he didn't deny a single thing. The affair had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of her believing she was crazy, that the distance between them was just a phase, that the late nights at the office and the weekend work trips were legitimate. 8 months of her trying harder, cooking his favorite meals, buying him thoughtful gifts, all while he was building a second life with someone else. "Do you want me to come?" I asked, already calculating how quickly I could throw clothes in a bag. "I can be there tomorrow. I can stay as long as you need." She started crying again, that ugly gut-wrenching sob that sounds like it's being torn out of someone's soul. "I don't want to be alone. I don't think I can be alone right now. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everything I thought was real turned out to be a lie. You're the only person I trust." My husband stirred in bed, and I moved into the hallway, lowering my voice. "Then don't be alone. Pack a bag. I'll drive down and get you, or you can take the train. Whatever you need, just get here." 3 days later, she arrived at our doorstep with 2 suitcases, a bulging tote bag, and a cardboard box filled with the remnants of her marriage, photographs, cookbooks from her mother-in-law, the wedding album she couldn't bring herself to throw away. She stood on our porch, pale and hollow-eyed, and when I pulled her into a hug, she held onto me like I was the only solid thing left in her world. My husband came up behind me and wrapped his arms around both of us. "You're safe here," he said. "Stay as long as you need. Our home is your home." I remember thinking how kind that was, how generous. I remember feeling grateful that I'd married someone with such a warm heart. I had no way of knowing then that those words would become the rope I'd use to hang myself with later. The first week was exactly what you'd expect. My sister was fragile. Fragile in the way expensive glass is fragile. Beautiful, but liable to shatter at the slightest vibration. She spent most of her time in the guest room, emerging only for meals and the occasional walk around the neighborhood. I brought her tea in the mornings. I sat with her in the evenings watching mindless television, letting her talk when she needed to, and just holding space when she needed silence. My husband was patient, considerate, everything a good man should be. He gave her space but checked in regularly. He made sure there was always fresh coffee in the morning. He handled the grocery shopping when I was too tired to think. He even let my sister take over the living room some nights, pretending he wanted to watch whatever reality show she was binging when I knew for a fact he hated it. "Thank you," I told him one night in bed, wrapping my arms around his shoulders. "She's so broken. I don't know what we'd do if you weren't so kind about all this." He kissed my forehead. "She's your sister. She's family. It's what you do." I fell asleep thinking how lucky I was. The second week was when I started noticing the small shifts. Nothing dramatic at first. Nothing I could point to and say that with any confidence. My sister started coming downstairs with her makeup done. Not heavy, not obvious, just a touch of mascara, a hint of color on her cheeks. She wore her hair in loose waves instead of the tight ponytails she'd favored during her first week. She started sitting up straighter at the dinner table, laughing at my husband's jokes, leaning in when he shared stories from his workday. "You look so much better," I told her one afternoon, genuinely happy to see the spark returning to her eyes. "I'm so glad you're starting to feel more like yourself." She gave me a strange smile, something that didn't quite reach her eyes. I think being here is helping. Being around such a healthy relationship, it reminds me that happy marriages actually exist. I should have heard the warning in those words. Instead, I squeezed her hand and felt grateful that my home was helping her heal. The third week, she started cooking. This wouldn't have been a problem except that I was the cook in our house. I was the one who planned the meals, who shopped for the ingredients, who stood at the stove every evening while my husband set the table and my daughter did her homework in the den. It was my thing, my love language. The way I showed my family I cared. The first time it happened, I let it slide. My sister had spent the day at home while I worked, and when I came back, the kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary, and there was a roast chicken on the table. My husband was already sitting down, a glass of wine in his hand, looking relaxed in a way he usually only got on weekends. "She wanted to cook for us," he said when I walked in, my laptop bag still slung over my shoulder. She said she needed something to keep her busy. My sister smiled at me from across the room, an oven mitt on one hand. "I hope you don't mind. I just felt like I was taking up space and not contributing anything. I thought maybe I could help with dinner sometimes. Ease the burden." What was I supposed to say? It was a kind gesture, a generous one. The words, "of course," came out of my mouth before I could stop them, and a small, mean part of me bit back the instinct to say no. To tell her that cooking was what I did, that it was mine. The fourth week, the dinners became a regular thing. Every time I came home from work, my sister was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, apron tied around her waist. And every time, my husband was already sitting at the table with a glass of wine, their easy conversation floating out to meet me at the front door. "You should come sit down," my sister would say when I appeared. "Let me bring you a plate. You must be exhausted." And she would bustle around the kitchen, filling plates and pouring drinks, and somehow I would end up at the table feeling like a guest in my own home. The 5th week was when I started noticing how they talked about me. Not badly. Not obviously. Nothing I could confront, nothing I could bring up without sounding paranoid and ungrateful. But there was a certain familiarity that had crept into their conversations. A shared understanding that seemed to exclude me. Remember when Emma got sunburned at the lake? My husband would ask my sister, using our daughter's name like they both had equal rights to the memory. "She was so upset, but you handled it perfectly." Or my sister would say, "I told Brian the other night that he should start looking into the school's gifted program. The way you and my sister talk about it, I think it's the right move for him." Brian was my husband's name. And I wasn't there for the conversation she was referencing. She'd mentioned it casually over breakfast, but I'd been rushing out the door. "Did you talk to him about that?" I asked one evening after my sister had gone to bed. My husband was reading in the living room, and I sat down beside him on the couch. "The school thing?" He shrugged, not looking up from his book. "She brought it up. Seemed like a good idea. Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just wondering." But I was lying. There was a reason. A slow, creeping reason that I was only just beginning to acknowledge. I realized something that night as I lay awake in bed. My husband had spent more time talking to my sister in the past 5 weeks than he had with me in the past 5 months. Not intentionally, not because he was avoiding me, but because she was always there, always available, always offering the kind of easy, uncomplicated conversation that comes without the weight of years and bills and shared responsibilities. I tried to tell myself it was natural. She was in crisis. She needed attention. He was being supportive. They were building a rapport. An easy friendship, the kind that made her feel less alone. But in the dark of our bedroom, with my husband's back turned to me, I felt that cold spreading through my chest again. The same cold I'd felt when I saw her touch his arm. The same cold that told me something was very, very wrong. The 6th week, I got home earlier than usual. I'd left work in the middle of the afternoon, a headache threatening to bloom into a full migraine. I wanted to grab my favorite pillow from the living room and retreat to my bedroom for the rest of the day. When I unlocked the front door, I heard music playing in the kitchen, soft and nostalgic, a song from our college days. I smiled, thinking of my sister, remembering the dance parties we'd had in our cramped dorm room. But when I rounded the corner into the hallway, I stopped. My sister and my husband were in the kitchen. She was at the stove, stirring something in a pot. He was standing beside her, his hand on the small of her back, leaning in to look at whatever she was cooking. She leaned her head against his shoulder for just a moment. A quick, fleeting gesture. The kind of thing that might have looked innocent if you didn't know what it meant. If you didn't know that the way she tilted her head and relaxed into his body was the same way she'd always tilted her head when she was trying to get close to someone. And then I saw my husband's hand move, sliding from her back to her waist, settling there like it belonged. I stood frozen in the hallway, my breath caught in my throat. I don't know how long I stayed there watching them. Seconds. Minutes. Time folded in on itself, losing all meaning. Finally, my sister glanced over and saw me. Her smile was brilliant, unbothered, like she'd been caught doing nothing more than getting a glass of water. "Oh, you're home early," she said, pulling away from my husband's side. "I'm making your favorite soup. I thought you might be tired when you got here." I looked at my husband. His expression was slightly guilty, a hint of something uncertain around his eyes. But he didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just said, "You should go lie down. Let us take care of everything tonight." The word "us" hung in the air between them. Us. My husband and my sister. And I was the one who needed to lie down. I went upstairs without saying anything. I closed my bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. I wanted to believe I was overthinking. I wanted to believe it was just my exhaustion, my anxiety, my imagination running wild. I wanted to believe my sister, my best friend, my blood, would never cross that line. But I remembered the way she'd touched his arm, the way she'd smiled at him across the dinner table, the way she'd been so eager to cook, to clean, to play hostess in my home. And I remembered that she'd done this before. Not with a brother-in-law, not with someone as close to her as my husband was. But I knew the pattern. I'd watched it play out countless times with her college boyfriends, her ex-husband, the string of men who'd come before him. When my sister wanted something, she got it. And she didn't care who had it first. I pressed my hands to my face and tried to breathe. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was projecting my own insecurities onto a situation that was completely innocent. My sister was vulnerable. My husband was kind. I was the one reading something into nothing. But then I thought about the way she'd been dressing differently, the way she'd been fixing her hair, wearing perfume, making herself look the way she used to look when she was dating. And I thought about the way my husband had been staying up later, staying in the living room with her longer, finding excuses to keep her company. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house. Somewhere downstairs, my husband and my sister were still watching television. I could hear their muffled laughter, the low murmur of their voices. I didn't go down to join them. I wasn't sure I was ready to see what I would find. In the morning, my sister was already in the kitchen, humming to herself as she made coffee. My husband was beside her, their shoulders brushing as they reached for the same mug. "Good morning, sleepyhead," my sister said, flashing me a smile that didn't quite feel real. "I made your favorite for breakfast." "Well, one of your favorites, French toast with berries." I forced a smile onto my face. "Thanks. That's really thoughtful of you." She beamed at me. "It's the least I can do. You've both been so wonderful to me. I just want to help." The word help landed wrong. It sounded like something else, something that made my stomach turn. I took my plate to the table and sat down across from them. My husband was talking about his workday, and my sister was nodding along, laughing at his jokes, touching his hand across the table. I watched them and felt that cold spreading through me again. Not a shiver, not a chill, something deeper. Something that felt like loss. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit. My sister wasn't just healing in my home, she was rebuilding herself. And she was using the pieces of my life to do it. I just didn't know how much she intended to take. The first time I found something that couldn't be explained away, it was a Thursday afternoon. My sister had taken our daughter to the park, and my husband was at work. The house was quiet, empty, and I was supposed to be catching up on emails. Instead, I found myself in the guest room. I told myself I was just looking for a book I'd lent her. A perfectly innocent reason to open her closet, to peer into the corners of the room that had become hers. But my hands were trembling as I pulled open the top drawer of the dresser. It was my underwear. Not just any underwear. The expensive lace set my husband had bought me for our anniversary. The silk chemise I'd been saving for a special occasion. The matching bra and panties I'd worn on our last vacation. All of it was there. Neatly folded, tucked between her sweaters like she'd been wearing them. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened the second drawer. More of my clothes. My favorite cashmere sweater. The designer jeans I'd saved months to buy. A silk blouse I'd only worn twice. They were all there, mixed in with her things like they'd always belonged to her. I closed the drawer slowly, carefully, like I was afraid the clothes might jump out and accuse me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. This couldn't be happening. This was my sister, my blood, the person I'd known my entire life. There had to be an explanation. Maybe she'd borrowed them. Maybe she'd meant to ask. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice. But even as the excuses formed in my head, I knew they were lies. My sister wasn't borrowing my clothes. She was taking them. She was taking my clothes and wearing them around my husband, around my daughter, in my home. I stood up abruptly and walked to the closet. Her clothes were hanging there, but mixed in with them were more of mine. My favorite trench coat, the dress I'd worn to my husband's company gala, a silk scarf my mother had given me for my birthday. I pulled the scarf off the hanger and held it in my hands. The fabric was soft beneath my fingers, a deep burgundy that had always brought out the color in my cheeks. I'd worn it on my first date with my husband. I'd worn it on our wedding day. It was mine. It was always mine. And now it was here, in her closet, smelling faintly of her perfume. I heard the front door open and close, and I froze. Footsteps in the hallway, my sister's voice calling out, asking if I was home. I shoved the scarf back into the closet and closed the door, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. But when she appeared in the doorway, she was smiling. "Oh, there you are. I thought you'd be working." Emma fell asleep in the car, so I just carried her up to her room. "She's getting so heavy," I nodded, not trusting my voice. "That's fine. I was just looking for a book." She glanced around the room, her eyes lingering on the dresser I'd just closed. "Did you find it?" "No," I said. "I don't think it's in here." She smiled again. But there was something different about it, a flicker of awareness. She knew I'd been snooping. She knew I'd found something, and she didn't look worried. She looked amused. "Well, let me know if you need help looking," she said. "I'm going to start dinner. I thought I'd make that pasta you like, the one with the creamy sauce." I followed her downstairs, my mind racing. How could she be so casual? How could she act like nothing was wrong when she was wearing my clothes, taking my things, living in my home like she had every right to be there? The answer came to me later that night when I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling. My sister didn't think she was doing anything wrong because she didn't see me as a person. She saw me as an extension of herself, my husband, my home, my clothes, my life. To her, it was all just part of the package she was entitled to. The thought made me sick. I started paying closer attention after that. I watched the way my sister looked at my husband when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way her gaze lingered on his hands, his shoulders, his mouth. I watched the way she positioned herself at the dinner table, sitting closer to him than necessary, leaning into his space. I watched the way she touched him. Casual touches that seemed innocent but happened with increasing frequency. And I watched my husband. I watched him lean into her touches. I watched him smile at her jokes, laugh at her stories, spend more time with her than he spent with me. I watched him look at her in a way that made my stomach clench with something that felt terrifyingly like grief. One night, I brought it up. "She's getting awfully comfortable here," I said, trying to keep my voice light. We were in bed, the lights off, the only sound the soft hum of the ceiling fan. I'm starting to wonder if she's ever going to leave. My husband sighed. "She's going through a hard time. You can't rush her. If we push her out, we'll just make things worse." "I'm not saying we should push her out. I'm just saying..." I trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. "I'm just saying she's too comfortable. I'm just saying she's taken over my kitchen, my living room, my clothes. I'm just saying she looks at you like she's the one who married you. She's your sister," my husband said, his voice patient in a way that felt condescending. "She needs us. We can't abandon her." "And what about us?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "What about our marriage? What about me?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached over and took my hand. "Nothing is going to happen to us. You're just stressed. We're both stressed. When she's back on her feet, things will go back to normal." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the distance I felt between us was just a temporary thing, a byproduct of the chaos my sister's arrival had brought. But even as I nodded and let him hold my hand, I knew something had shifted, something that couldn't be undone with a few reassuring words. The week after my discovery in the guest room, my sister asked if she could borrow my car. Hers was still in storage, she said, and she needed to run some errands. She'd been making more trips out lately, coming home with shopping bags full of things she didn't need. I assumed she was doing what people do when they're healing from heartbreak. Retail therapy, distraction. But when I found the receipt in my car's cup holder, I realized the truth was something else entirely. The receipt was from a jewelry store. The kind of jewelry store that didn't sell baubles or costume pieces. The kind that sold engagement rings. My heart stopped. I stared at the receipt, my mind blank with disbelief. She'd bought an engagement ring. She'd been divorced for less than 3 months. Who could she possibly be buying an engagement ring for? And then the answer hit me with the force of a physical blow. I thought about the way she looked at my husband, the way she touched him, the way she'd been inserting herself into our lives, our home, our marriage. I thought about the clothes she'd taken from my closet, the perfume she'd started wearing that smelled suspiciously like mine. I thought about the way she'd been building a parallel life, a life where she was the wife and I was the intruder. She was planning to take my husband. The realization made me nauseous. I sat in the driver's seat of my car. The receipt crumpled in my hand, trying to breathe through the wave of panic that crashed over me. This was insane. This was my sister, my blood, the person who'd held my hand at our mother's funeral, who'd helped me plan my wedding, who'd been my maid of honor. She wouldn't do this. She couldn't do this. But the receipt was real, and the clothes in her drawer were real, and the way she looked at my husband was so real I could taste it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more evidence. I needed to be sure. So I started watching more closely, documenting everything I saw. The way she left her bedroom door open when she changed, knowing my husband might walk by. The way she asked him to help her with things she could easily do herself, like reaching a high shelf or opening a jar. The way she lingered in doorways, framed perfectly in the light, like she was posing for a portrait. I started checking the guest room when she was out. I found more of my clothes, more of my jewelry, more of my things. I found a photograph of my husband that I'd never seen before, tucked between the pages of her book. I found notes she'd written, fragments of thoughts that made my blood run cold. He's so kind. He's so patient. He's everything I ever wanted. How did I not see it before? He looks at me sometimes and I can tell he sees me. Really sees me, not like a sister, not like a friend, like someone who matters. I don't know how much longer I can pretend I don't feel it, but I can't hurt her. She's been through so much already. She deserves better. She deserves someone who loves her the way he loves me. Except he doesn't love me. He loves her. The last sentence wasn't about me. It was about her. My sister thought my husband loved her. And the worst part? I wasn't sure she was wrong. I needed to talk to someone, to tell someone what was happening. But who? My husband would think I was paranoid. My mother would tell me I was being dramatic. My friends wouldn't understand. How could they? How could anyone understand that my sister, my own sister, was trying to steal my life? So I kept it all inside, letting it fester and grow until it consumed me. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I stopped being present in my own home, watching everything from a distance like a ghost haunting the edges of her own life. And then one night, my sister didn't come home. She texted me around 9 p.m. saying she was staying at a friend's house, a friend I'd never heard of, a friend she'd apparently met during one of her shopping trips. I didn't believe her, but I didn't have the energy to argue. I told her to be careful, told her to text me when she got there. And then I sat in the living room alone, staring at the door. My husband came downstairs around midnight. He looked surprised to see me awake. "Everything okay?" he asked, settling onto the couch beside me. "You look exhausted." "I can't sleep," I said. "Something's wrong, Brian. I can feel it." "Nothing's wrong," he said, but his voice was too quick, too bright. "You're just overtired. You should go to bed." "Where do you think she is?" I asked, and I watched his face carefully. "Really?" He looked away. "She's an adult. She can take care of herself." "That's not what I asked." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, careful, like he was choosing every word with precision. "I think she's struggling. I think she's trying to figure out who she is now that her marriage is over. And I think she's been looking for comfort in places she shouldn't." My blood went cold. "What places?" He shook his head. "I don't know. I think we need to be careful. All of us." "Careful how?" He looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Something guilty, something ashamed, something that made my heart crack open. "Just careful," he said, "for all our sakes." He kissed my forehead and went upstairs. I sat in the living room alone, staring at the dark window, trying to understand what he'd just told me. He knew. He knew what my sister was doing. He'd seen it, felt it, recognized it. And instead of stopping it, instead of telling me, he'd been going along with it. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he didn't understand the depth of what was happening. But he knew something was wrong. And he'd kept it from me. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the chest. Not just my sister, my husband, the two people I trusted most in the world, and they'd been building something behind my back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room watching the minutes tick by, waiting for my sister to come home. She didn't. When the sun came up, I made a decision. I was done watching. I was done waiting. I was done being a ghost in my own life. I was going to confront my sister, and I was going to do it in front of my husband. Let him see the truth. Let him be forced to choose. The phone rang at 8 a.m. It was my sister. "I'm sorry I didn't come home last night," she said. "I needed some time to think. Can I come over? I need to talk to you." "Both of you," I agreed, my heart pounding. She was coming to talk. That was good. That was what I wanted. But as I hung up the phone, I had a terrible feeling. A feeling that the conversation we were about to have wasn't going to go the way I expected. A feeling that my sister wasn't coming to confess. She was coming to announce. I went upstairs and woke my husband. I told him my sister was coming. I told him we needed to talk. I didn't tell him what I'd found in her room, what I'd seen, what I'd suspected. I wanted to see his reaction when the truth came out. He sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost?" "Maybe I have," I said. "Maybe we've all been seeing ghosts." He stared at me, confusion, and something else flickering across his face. What are you talking about? Just get dressed, I said. We'll talk when she gets here. And as I walked out of the bedroom, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The calm of someone who had nothing left to lose. The calm of someone who had already lost everything. The door swung open, and my sister stepped inside like she owned the place. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, a confident rhythm that seemed to mock the chaos in my chest. She was holding a small gift bag, the kind with tissue paper peeking out the top, and she was smiling like she'd just won the lottery. I brought something for both of you, she said, setting the bag on the coffee table. I know this is sudden, but I've been thinking a lot lately, and I have something important to share. My husband shifted beside me. I could feel his discomfort radiating off him like heat. He knew something was coming. He just didn't know what. Take a seat, I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised me. Let's talk. She sat down in the armchair across from us, crossing her legs elegantly. For a moment, she just looked at us, her eyes moving from my husband to me and back again. There was something calculating in her gaze, something that made my skin crawl. I want to thank you, she began, her voice soft and sincere. Both of you. You've been so generous, so kind. You opened your home to me when I had nothing. You gave me a place to heal. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. My husband started to speak, but I held up a hand, silencing him. You don't need to repay us. You're family. That's what family does. My sister's smile widened. I know, and that's what makes this so hard, because I need to tell you something, and I'm afraid it's going to change everything. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I gripped the edge of the couch cushion, grounding myself. Just say it. She took a deep breath, and then she looked at my husband. Not at me, at him. I'm in love with you, Brian. I have been for weeks now, and I know you feel it too. I see the way you look at me. I feel the way you touch me. We've been dancing around this for too long, and I can't pretend anymore. The room went silent, the kind of silence that fills a space completely, leaving no room for anything else. I heard my own breathing, shallow and rapid. I heard the clock ticking on the mantelpiece. I heard my husband's sharp intake of air, but I didn't hear him deny it. Say something, my sister said, her voice trembling slightly. Please, I need to know I'm not imagining this. My husband's face was pale. His hands were clenched at his sides. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff trying to decide whether to jump. Brian, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Look at me, he did. His eyes met mine and I saw it. The guilt, the shame, the confusion. But I also saw something else. Something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't going to deny it. You can't be serious, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You can't actually be standing there, in my home, in my dress, telling me you're in love with my husband. My sister turned to me, her expression shifting from hopeful to defensive. I didn't plan this. It just happened. We're drawn to each other. We can't help it. Can't help it? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You moved into my home. You wore my clothes. You spent every moment you could with my husband. You orchestrated this entire thing. I didn't orchestrate anything, she said, her voice sharp. There's something between us, something real. And I think you know it too. I think you've been pretending not to see it. I looked at my husband. Is that true? Have you been pretending? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know what to say, he finally managed. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't want this to happen, but I can't deny that I feel something. I don't know what it is. I've been confused. We've both been confused. The word confused hit me like a slap. Confused. He was confused. Meanwhile, my sister was standing in my living room, wearing my dress, declaring her love for my husband. Get out, I said, standing up. Both of you. Get out of my house. My sister's eyes widened. You can't be serious. You're not going to throw me out like this. I can and I am. You're done here. You're done in my home, done with my family, done with my life. I want you gone. She stood up slowly, her expression shifting from shock to something colder, something that made my blood run cold. Fine. But you need to know something I've been keeping from you. She walked over to the gift bag on the coffee table and pulled out a small velvet box. She opened it, revealing a diamond ring, not an engagement ring, a wedding band, my husband's wedding band. Where did you get that? I whispered. From Brian, she said calmly. He gave it to me weeks ago, told me he was confused about his feelings, told me he needed time to figure things out, but he gave me this ring as a symbol, a promise. He told me to hold on to it until he was ready to make a decision. I looked at my husband. His face was ashen. That's not what happened, he said quickly. I gave it to her because I was afraid I'd lose it while we were swimming. I asked her to hold on to it for a few days. I didn't give it to her as a promise. Liar, my sister spat. You told me you were confused. You told me you didn't know if you wanted to stay married to her. You told me you felt something for me that you'd never felt before. I told you I was confused about my feelings, my husband said, his voice cracking. I didn't say I was leaving her. I didn't say I wanted to be with you. You may as well have, my sister said. You looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. You touched me like I belonged to you. You gave me hope, Brian. You gave me hope, and now you're trying to take it away. I watched them argue, feeling like I was floating outside my own body, my husband and my sister, two people I loved more than almost anyone in the world, and they were destroying everything. Stop, I said, my voice cutting through their bickering. Both of you. Just stop. They fell silent, turning to look at me. I don't care whose version of events is true, I said. I don't care what you thought you felt, or what you thought you meant. All I know is that my sister moved into my home, took my things, and tried to steal my husband. And my husband, I turned to look at him. My husband stood by and let it happen. He didn't stop her. He didn't tell me. He just let it go on and on while I sat here like a fool. I'm sorry, my husband said. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. You should have told me the moment you felt anything, I said. You should have put a stop to it. Instead, you let her think there was a chance. You gave her hope. You let her believe she could have you. My sister's face crumpled. He was the one who made me believe it. He was the one who looked at me like I mattered. He was the one who touched me and held me and made me feel like I was more than just a sister. I never touched you inappropriately, my husband said, his voice sharp. I never held you. I never made any promises. You imagined all of that. I didn't imagine it, she screamed. I felt it. I lived it. You can't just erase everything I felt because you're scared of your wife. I'm scared of losing my wife, my husband said, his voice breaking. I'm scared of losing my daughter. I'm scared of losing everything I've ever worked for. And I'm terrified that I almost ruined it all because I was too weak to say no. The words hung in the air between them. My sister stared at him, her face a mask of hurt and anger. My husband stared at the ground, unable to meet her eyes, and I stood in the middle of it all, feeling like a referee in a fight I never signed up for. I'm going to say this once, I said, my voice steady and cold, and then I'm done. My sister is going to pack her things and leave this house. She's going to find somewhere else to live, and she's not going to contact me, my husband, or my daughter ever again. And my husband, I turned to him. My husband is going to come with me to therapy. We're going to figure out how we got here and how we fix this. Because I'm not losing my family. Not like this. Not to her. My sister's laugh was bitter. You think therapy is going to fix this? He almost left you. He almost chose me. How are you ever going to trust him again? That's not your concern, I said. What happens between me and my husband is between me and my husband. You lost any right to be part of this conversation the moment you tried to destroy my marriage. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. Pack your things. I want you out of this house in 1 hour. If you're not gone by then, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You can't do this. I'm your sister. We're family. You stopped being my family the moment you put on my dress and told my husband you loved him, I said. You stopped being my sister when you decided your happiness was more important than mine. Family doesn't do that. Family doesn't destroy family. She stood there for a long moment, her face cycling through a dozen different expressions. Hurt, anger, denial, and finally, resignation. Fine, she said, her voice hollow. I'll go. But you should know, I don't regret any of it. I felt something real. I felt something I've never felt before. And if you're too blind to see that your marriage was already broken before I got here, that's your problem. She walked out of the living room and up the stairs. I heard her moving around in the guest room, opening drawers, shoving things into bags. I heard the slam of the closet door, the zipper of a suitcase. And I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, feeling like I'd just survived a war. My husband moved to sit beside me. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know how to make this right. I don't know if I can make this right, but I want to try. I want to try so badly. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. Looking at him meant seeing the betrayal all over again. It meant remembering the way he'd looked at her, touched her, given her hope. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you come to me the moment you felt something was wrong? Because I didn't know what I was feeling, he said. Because I was confused. Because I was scared. Because I thought if I just ignored it, it would go away. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt our family. You almost did, I said. You almost destroyed everything. I know, he said. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust. If you let me. We sat in silence for the next 40 minutes. My sister came down the stairs, her suitcases in hand, and walked past us without a word. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at my husband. She just walked to the front door and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and I felt something release in my chest. Not relief, not forgiveness, just the start of something new. The first few weeks after my sister left were the hardest. The house felt emptier, quieter, but not in a peaceful way. It felt like the silence was waiting for something, waiting for a confession, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for me to finally break. I didn't break, though. I came close. There were nights I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every touch, every glance between my husband and my sister. There were mornings I woke up and couldn't remember why I was still fighting. There were afternoons I looked at my husband and felt nothing but a hollow ache where love used to live. But I also started to see things differently. In the weeks that followed, I began to notice my husband trying, not with grand gestures or dramatic apologies, but with small, consistent acts of care. He started coming home earlier. He started helping with the dishes without being asked. He started taking Emma to the park on weekends, giving me time to breathe. He started leaving notes on my nightstand. Little reminders that he was thinking about me. It wasn't enough, not at first, but it was something. We started therapy the third week after my sister left. The first session was awkward and painful. I cried through most of it. My husband sat in silence, his hands clasped together, his eyes fixed on the floor. The therapist asked us what we wanted from each other. I said I wanted to feel safe again. He said he wanted to be trusted again. We both realized we were starting from zero. Therapy didn't fix everything overnight. It took months of difficult conversations, of digging into the wounds, of confronting the uncomfortable truths about our marriage. We talked about the distance that had grown between us long before my sister arrived. We talked about the ways we'd both stopped trying. We talked about the loneliness I'd felt and the confusion he'd experienced. We talked about what it meant to rebuild something from the ground up. Slowly, painfully, we started to heal. I was the one who found my sister's letter. It came 6 months after she left, addressed to me in her familiar handwriting. I almost threw it away. I almost burned it without reading it. But something made me open the envelope. I don't expect you to forgive me, she wrote. I don't even expect you to read this, but I needed to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I lost you. I'm sorry because I was broken and I tried to fill my emptiness by taking from you. That was wrong. You were the one person who was always there for me. and I repaid you by trying to destroy your life. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on understanding why I do the things I do. I don't know if I'll ever be okay, but I'm trying, and I hope one day when you're ready, you might consider giving me a second chance. Not as a sister, not yet, just as a person who's trying to be better. I read the letter 3 times. The first time I was angry. The second time I was sad. The third time I felt something I hadn't expected. Compassion, not forgiveness, not yet, but a glimmer of understanding. My husband and I talked about the letter that night. We talked about what it would mean to let her back into our lives. Even a little. We talked about boundaries and trust and the long road ahead. We didn't make any decisions. We just talked. That was the moment I knew we were going to make it. Not because everything was fixed. Not because we'd forgotten what happened, but because we were finally talking. Really talking. The way we should have been talking all along. Emma, my daughter, started asking questions about her aunt around that time. She was young, but she wasn't oblivious. She'd noticed the tension, the absence, the way her father and I sometimes went quiet when her aunt's name came up. We told her the truth in the simplest terms we could. We told her that her aunt had been going through a hard time and had made some mistakes. We told her we needed some time apart to heal. We told her that we loved her and that none of it was her fault. She accepted it the way children do, with a simple, uncomplicated trust. She asked if she could send her aunt a drawing. I told her she could. Watching my daughter draw that picture, a messy crayon image of our family standing under a rainbow, I felt something shift inside me. I realized I'd been so focused on the betrayal, on the pain, on the loss, that I'd forgotten to look at what I still had. I still had my daughter. I still had my home. I still had a husband who was trying to be better. And I still had myself. One night, about a year after my sister left, my husband and I were sitting on the back porch. The stars were out, scattered across the sky like tiny promises. He reached over and took my hand. I know I don't say it enough, he said, but I love you. I've always loved you. And I'm so sorry I made you doubt that. I squeezed his hand. I know, I said. I know you do. Are you okay? He asked. I mean, really okay? I thought about it for a moment. I thought about everything we'd been through. The betrayal, the pain, the slow grinding work of rebuilding. I thought about the letter from my sister and the forgiveness I still wasn't ready to give. I thought about Emma's drawing and the hope it represented. I'm getting there, I said. I don't know if I'll ever be the same person I was before, but I'm not sure I want to be. I think I like who I'm becoming. He smiled at me, and for the first time in a long time, it felt real. Not guilty, not apologetic, just real. I looked up at the stars and thought about my sister. I didn't know if I would ever let her back into my life. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again, but I knew I didn't have to make that decision tonight. Tonight, I could just sit here, holding my husband's hand, watching the stars, and letting myself breathe. Tomorrow, I would figure out the rest. What I learned if I could go back and give advice to my younger self, the version of me who opened her door to her broken sister with nothing but love in her heart, I would tell her this: trust your gut. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being paranoid or jealous or insecure. Your instincts are there to protect you. Listen to them. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-respect. You can love someone and still say no. You can be compassionate and still protect yourself. Compassion without boundaries is just self-destruction. And maybe most importantly, you cannot save someone who is determined to drown you. My sister didn't need my help. She needed to help herself. I gave her a place to land, but I couldn't give her a reason to fly. That had to come from her. I also learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about making mistakes and trying again. It's about choosing each other every single day, even on the days when it's easier to walk away. My marriage isn't perfect. It may never be perfect, but it's mine, and I'm proud of the work we've done to save it. As for my sister, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day I'll be ready to let her back in. Maybe I won't. Either way, I've made peace with the fact that I deserve to put myself first. I deserve to protect my family. I deserve to be happy, and so do you.